On this episode of The Geek State, we're doing whatever it takes to break down Avengers Endgame.
Not that you care, but I accidentally spoiled the 2009 Cameron Diaz classic, The Box.
I've got another unfortunate run-in at the movie theater and news from around the world of geek. All this and more on this episode of The Geek State.
3, 2, 1.
We're trying to pull off something damn near impossible. This is the fight of our lives. Thank God I'm here.
Stand by alert.
This is it.
The only podcast featuring hosts who were not victims of the Thanos snap. This is The Geek State.
Adjust the brightness of your podcast player for best listening quality. Do whatever it takes. This is The Geek State, the podcast about all the cool stuff that's going on in the world of geek. And man, this has been an insane week with just incredibly large, epic stuff. Talking Endgame. A little later on in the podcast, we'll be talking in depth into the movie. So if you haven't seen it yet, listen up to that point, pause it, go watch the movie. But apparently, based upon how many people have seen this movie, how much money it's made, there's a good chance you already saw it. And I can't do this alone. James, how's it going, man?
I'm doing really well. I have survived all the spoilers. I got DM'd two people DM'd me. I don't think they're related to this podcast, but they DM'd me and decided that they were going to try and spoil it for me, but I thought them away.
Good. I was successful.
Knocked them away.
I was really successful. I only saw there was one tweet that made it through my my filters, because I talked last week, I added all these words to my my Twitter muted words, and I was like, there's no way anything is getting through. And one tweet did, but it wasn't very clear, and I wasn't sure it was even about Endgame. But I'll talk about that later, because I'm going to try to avoid spoilers here at the top of the show. But I do have a story about going to the movies, because yet again, I think it's not just the theater chain. This is the exact same theater auditorium where a few weeks ago we talked about a run-in with a disorderly person who was next to us who yelled expletives and threw popcorn at us, and I almost had the courage to report him. I got up.
I love how you describe that. And I almost had the courage to report him.
I had the courage to quietly pass the popcorn to Ramon. I stood up. I walked past him. I had to go in front of him. But because you're in the reclining seats, he's in a kind of immobile position, there's nothing really he could have done. Taking a lot of effort. And I almost left, and I almost did it, but I was like, we talked about this the last time. So We're sitting in the theater. Amazing. Got to see the Force Awakens. Goodness, this is an old theater. Got to see the Rise of Skywalker teaser on the big screen. Got goosebumps. It was amazing.
They did not have that at mine. I was disappointed.
It was the one. It's for us at least. It was the trailer that played right before the movie started. So I was happy to see it. It was pretty cool. And then so the movie opens, and we've got the scene, and I'm not going to explain what's going on yet, but if you've seen it, and in the very front row, we're stadium seating. In very front row, there's only 9 seats, and all 9 of those seats are filled with filthy, disgusting teenagers, and they started talking they were fine. I didn't notice anything during the trailers, but as soon as the movie started, they were talking loud, pointing at the screen, so their hands are kind of in the shadow now, they're Mystery Science Theater in this thing. One guy's got his phone open, and he's showing his friend stuff, and just nonstop yelling and ooh, and in the back of my head, I kind of was like, oh, are we I didn't want to make a judgment if these are just being really bad kids, or is there a special, needs group or something that's here, but I wasn't sure. And people are shushing, the entire theater is.
That's the last thing you want to do, is report the special needs group.
That's what so I was in my head kind of thinking maybe someone will calm them, or something. I don't know, but they kept doing it for about a minute or so in, and the thoughts are running through my head. Do I get up? Do I do this? But the movie's just starting, and I don't want to miss something big at the beginning. But without hesitation, the Captain America, the Tony Stark, the Thor of Auditorium 11 stands up next to me. Ramon leaves the theater, and as soon as he leaves, somebody loudly yells, like top of their lungs, "Shut up!" at these kids, and they don't shut up. They keep talking, they keep gesturing wildly, and the movie kind of gets going a little bit, and Ramon comes back to sit down, and then here comes the lowly employee of this theater chain, and you can see them, and they're watching, and the kids are quiet, and the person's about to leave, like, oh, they're behaving now, there's nothing to see here, and then they do it again, and that person beelines right to them, and of course, I can't hear what this person is telling them, but I wanted to imagine it's like, listen, you kids, if you talk one more time, you are out of here. But I don't know, but it was successful, and they did not talk the rest of the movie. And this is yet more evidence that I need to budget 10 more minutes into getting ready for the movies to go to the Alamo Drafthouse, because all of this is so easily avoided had we gone to the Drafthouse.
It is. The only downside to the Drafthouse, though, is you have people walking in and out. And I'm a peripheral visual person, so I like that something happens on the side. I'm like the squirrel dog from Up. I'm like, what? Like it's very quick for me to I think get distracted.
You're right. I shouldn't have. That's the thing. We shouldn't have to deal with that. It's just kind of the way movie theaters go. You either have, on one hand, if you're really loud and obnoxious, you go to the Drafthouse, they'll take care of you. But then, you have the waiters and stuff. They are moving in and out, which is fine for some stuff. If you're going to go, just a general movie. But this is like, I want to see this on the biggest screen possible with the best sound possible. And oftentimes that's not going to be at the Drafthouse, at least locally. But I was just like, man, it's such a bad string of luck recently with this theater. But, we are going on those opening nights. Could easily have avoided this had I gone like a matinee. So, we're going to get deep into Endgame. We're going to talk about the movie. We're going to talk about the stuff, the things that happened, the Easter eggs, all the things that made us excited, the things that made us think, the things that made us question. All of that is coming up later in the show. But James, we've got a few headlines to cover this week, so we're going to dive right into it. So I don't know about you, James, but I did a little drama in high school. I don't know if you did some performances, or if you did if you were ever in plays. But
no, I was too busy making fun of those kids. I'm just kidding. Obviously, I didn't make fun of those kids. I was a loser. I'm just a not talented loser.
That's not true. But I definitely did not get to be in a production like the students at North Bergen High School did, because they're like, they don't even have an actual theater, like a full theater program. The people who put on their student productions are like the arts department head and some other folks. They recently, and this has gotten a lot of attention, they recently did they did Alien. They did Ridley Scott's Alien. They adapted it themselves, built the costumes, built the sets. They did 2 performances of this show. It got, a ton of attention online, celebrities seeing it and all that. Ridley Scott sent them a letter, and I think I don't have the number in front of me. I want to say it was like $5,000 or $3,500 to donate to them so that they could do one more encore performance, and it sold out. It was an interesting story, because after the second showing, after they had done it, for the second time, as soon as the show was over with, they were striking the sets and taking everything to the dumpsters because they were done with it. And then they looked online and saw how big it was, and they were like, back to the dumpsters. They were like, we need to save some of this stuff. So Ridley Scott sent them this really nice long letter, and then part of it says, limitations often produce the best results because imagination determination can surpass any shortfall and determine the way forward always. He also encouraged them that they should maybe do Gladiator as their next performance. But you got to look. Have you had a chance? Have you seen any of the sets and the stuff that these kids did?
All I've seen is just a couple pictures from it. I haven't seen any of the video. I saw the Xenomorph costume, which looked pretty cool for the low budget that I'm sure they had. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool that they were able to do this. I don't know. I mean, I guess it was kind of it seems like they don't really have a theater program, but they were able to do this through the school, which is awesome that the school allowed them to do something like that, especially in today's world of lawsuits and,
right.
cease and desists. But, especially specifically with property, intellectual property infringement.
I mean, because it did so good, I think that's, Ridley's given them the retroactive blessing for this, and probably because they didn't have an existing theater department that is used to having to license plays and buy plays or that kind of thing for the performances, that they perhaps didn't know what they needed to do. But all these students put in a ton of hard work building all these props and sets. About an hour or two before the curtain opened, Sigourney Weaver shows up backstage. And the video of that is just incredible. Like, everybody's freaking out. She's so grateful and it is just, what a cool thing for an actor to see people do something like this. I mean, it is, of course, I think the 40th anniversary of Alien, and they're doing a lot of promotion. So this kind of worked out really well for Ridley Scott. Like, this has elevated the marketing PR of this anniversary and some of the merchandise and stuff that they're doing. But Sigourney Weaver also introduced the play, surprised the whole audience. Just said a bunch of nice things, and you can actually, there is a 4K camcorder version of this play if you so need to watch this. But I watched the beginning of it, and it's great. They've got video projection stuff going on. They've got these massive sets, and by all accounts it looks like an awesome thing. And just encourage creativity everywhere you go. So if you're listening to this and you're a teacher or whatever, this is such a cool thing. Encourage people to put together a play like this instead of having to do Our Town or The Crucible. To have a bunch of kids doing something that they're actually into is a great way to spark creativity. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, my high school did The Hobbit, so that was pretty cool.
Hey, that is pretty cool.
I mean, I guess
we did a dramatic thing of some missionaries. It was very dramatic. There was a scene where we were all getting killed by a tribe that was it's a true story. And the effect that they used was a strobe light, and it was us just acting it out in slow motion. It was real dramatic.
That's awesome.
Small Baptist private high schools, gotta love it. But so Endgame, this new Avengers movie, did pretty well at the box office, huh, James?
It appears to have done decently, raking in a meager $1.2 billion worldwide. Doesn't stink.
Nope.
It just in the U.S. alone, it did $350 million, which is another record, which is super exciting. I think Vegas might have lost a little bit of money on this one because I don't know why, but they had it at a plus 300 odds to make $275 million, and that seemed like a sure thing for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's beat out the last.
It's done crazy good. Endgame has already brought in the United States $100,000 more than Solo, a Star Wars story, made over its entire box office.
Life. Yeah.
In 5 days, it has a few records yet to beat. Domestically, there's quite a few big pictures ahead of itself, but I honestly can't imagine it not overtaking them at the pace that it's going. At number 4 is Infinity War, which made $678 million plus change. At number 3, it's Black Panther, $700 million. Number 2, this is of course just domestic, Avatar, $760. But you know Jim Cameron's out there like, wait until they see my sequel, if that ever happens. And then sitting still at number 1 at $936 million domestic, Star Wars: The Force Awakens. I can really imagine this thing getting there. The only thing that makes me question its pacing is like how it can get there is the theater market share this past weekend was 90% in game. So 9 out of 10 people that went to go see a movie this weekend. Did I do statistics right, or you're the math guy?
Yes, that is correct.
Yes, I did it. 9 out of 10 people who went to the movies this weekend saw Avengers Endgame, and the other person went to see Captain Marvel because it shot up to number 2 this weekend.
Which is so strange.
To me, that says
obviously everything else is getting so far out of the way of this movie that I think the only other movie that I even saw that I had recognized any marketing for was some horror movie, and now I can't even think of the name of it.
It's the Curse of La
Lule Lo.
Right. Yeah,
that's a Metal Gear Solid reference for all you nerds out there.
There's many of us.
There are dozens of us.
Yeah. Something that I did notice happening was all the theaters kind of at the last minute started adding it was starting at our theater. Like there was a new Avengers almost starting like every 30 minutes at the start of the day. Like it was every theater was playing it. And I don't think that was the original intention. They had the most screens showing this at the same time. And critics will be like, "Oh my gosh, look at the second week drop." Yeah, because we've all seen it.
Right. Everyone's seen it.
It's not like that, but they couldn't go last week.
I mean, there are a lot of people too, though. I mean, I think that it will continue quite a bit, though, because I know that there's a lot of people that are like me that don't go the very first chance because they don't want to be in there with a packed crowd.
Right. But then this is
I went in an off time and it was still very busy. This
is a movie though with delicate spoiler, that kind of stuff that it's like Game of Thrones. Like I feel like the window for spoilers on Game of Thrones is like 2 seconds after it happens on TV.
Less than.
Yeah. Like there should be almost no reason why if you hear a Game of Thrones spoiler that you should ever be offended, because it is so prevalent. If you don't watch it in that time that it's originally airing, it's kind of up to you to run the risks of running into it. And I want to just throwing that out there. Sometimes I feel like that kind of stuff just slips by, but Endgame did crazy good. Pretty soon, we're going to knock out Avatar and everything on this list will be Disney. Oh wait, Avatar is Disney now. So it's kind of
silly.
It's kind of crazy. Something else that's silly. Minecraft's a video game that people play most of the time, and not the character.
It's silly. Moving on.
It's silly. Moving on. No story here. I don't know why this came across my feed, and I was like, I don't know why I want I want to bump the original story which I had about Chinese police shutting down a counterfeit Lego operation, which there is. And then I was like, oh, Minecraft, this is like the video game version of Legos. I'm a guy who's never played it. But this guy has been playing a 5-year-long game. This guy named Phil Watson, he's 31 years old, of Newcastle, has been playing the most difficult hardcore mode, which means his character can't be brought back to life. He's walked like thousands and thousands of miles. And he said, I got a bit full of myself, and he got this. So apparently he holds the record for like the longest running game. He said he got startled. I don't know what any of this means. He got startled by a zombie baby and then eaten by a spider. And, that's what ended his 5-year game record. Mr. Watson has been playing Minecraft most days, averaging about 20 hours a week. Zombie. Okay, so it explains here there's a zombie baby wearing enchanted armor, so he's not a total wuss. And he ran away from it, got shot in the back by a hidden skeleton, which knocked him into a spider. And he could have survived this whole thing had he eaten a health-giving golden apple sooner. He said, "Oh man."
Yeah, well, I mean, I just don't know what to say.
I think this
sorry.
is yeah.
Is this Mr. Watson just IBM's Watson playing this game?
Maybe.
Is that what this is? Is this code?
It's code for let's talk about Avengers Endgame, why everybody's here.
Pick up your visuals, counting.
This is a feature presentation.
And now, on with the show.
Holy cow, you will not believe what's been going on. You remember when we were in space? And I got all dusty, and I must have passed out because I woke up and you were gone, but Dr. Strange was there, right? And he was like, it's been 5 years, come on, they need us. And then he started doing the yellow sparkly thing that he does all the time. What are you doing? Oh, this is nice.
All right, it's been a whole year since we went to Infinity War.
It is,
and everybody's kind of it's the big cliffhanger. What's going to happen? What is this world? How do we get these heroes back? Can we get them back at all? All that kind of stuff. So the world has changed. Just a heads up, we are not going to avoid spoilers. We're talking freely. This is how this will go. So you've been fully warned. And if you haven't seen the movie, then you're that 1 out of 10 people this weekend. So maybe you saw Captain Marvel, which is cool. But yeah,
or the Curse of Lalo.
Or that one, yeah. So we see Hawkeye, and of course, this is when the rowdy kids and stuff were happening. So I kind of only partially saw this, but this kind of catches us up to see kind of what Hawkeye was up to. He's doing some archery with his daughter, which I didn't know
he was on house arrest with.
Oh, right.
As represented by the ankle bracelet, which I did see Ant-Man and Ant-Man versus the Wasp, or Ant-Man and the Wasp, so I was all caught up before I went and saw this film.
Perfect. Good. Finally.
They were on house arrest for the same thing.
Gotcha. So I was right, the exact same thing. I missed some of those details because again, there were teenagers shouting and waving their arms around. It was insane. But this is when all of Hawkeye's family gets dusted. I did not know, but his daughter, the one that was shooting archery, is one of the Russo's daughters.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that either.
Easter egg. Yeah, and I don't know if this is true or if I'm making this up, but in the comics, Hawkeye's daughter becomes like Hawkeye,
like female Hawkeye.
Right.
I forget her name, but yes, that is a thing.
I wish I knew more on that, but
I don't know. Her name might even be Hawkeye. I don't think that's the case, but yes.
Hawk Girl.
No, that's
Girl
a DC
Hawkeye.
character.
She Hawkeye.
Fem Hawk.
Something like that. We get the Marvel, the Marvel logo, theater, all that kind of stuff. And this is where we kind of start really with the good stuff, because now we're in space. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just to note, I know I've mentioned this before on other podcasts, and possibly it was back in the S'more Geeks days, but very rarely do you see an opening title logo. And we got the opening Avengers Endgame for this one.
Oh, you're right.
They didn't do it at the very end, which most of them, the last thing you see is just Captain Marvel or whatever.
Yeah.
They don't do it in the beginning.
That's definitely a difference this time around. And I guess it makes more sense to play at the beginning, because at the end, the end game's over with. We're in the transitional kind of thing. So that title kind of just signifies, okay, now we're in the end game. This is it. Like Doctor Strange said, we're in the end game now. So now we're in space. Tony, Nebula, they're trying to figure stuff out. And I'd kind of forgotten Captain Marvel for a long time. Like watching this, not even thinking like who's gonna save them. It makes it, as soon as we started seeing the glow and stuff come up and everything, I was like, oh, that's right, Captain Marvel's a thing. I forgot all about her. Like have her come in. But man, Tony looks awful. Like, and they pulled that whole like Steve Rogers from the first Captain America like visual effect thing where you got like big old Robert Downey Jr.'s head on somebody's skinny emaciated body.
But they really do a good job of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks good.
I mean, it was good in the first Avenger, but I think they've gotten really, the Industrial Light and Magic folks and everybody else involved, like the de-aging and all that stuff keeps getting better and better.
Also, I'm skipping ahead just for a second, but in the brief moment that you get to see,
go anywhere. Yeah.
That we see Martin Sheen as Pym, did they just get Emilio Estevez to play as that? Because it looked, I mean...
You're right, it really did, but I don't think...
It looked almost exactly, which obviously is his son, so it would make sense that it would look like him, but it looked identical to Emilio Estevez.
I think it's the hair.
Very jarring to me, but anyways, it looked very good.
Yeah, no, it totally, it looked awesome, and it was just funny, and it was cool in that scene, too, to see, like, that classic Ant-Man helmet, like the, kind of his Mach 1 version of it was sitting on one of the workbenches. That was pretty cool. So we've got everybody together. Things are like pretty terrible. They don't have much of a mission. We got Captain Marvel. She's back in here. We got Natalie, Black Widow, who is, working on, just kind of running the day to day, trying to, and did you pick up, there was a kind of little throwaway line about the underwater earthquakes?
Yeah. What was that about?
I'm thinking his Namor. You got some Submariner kind of hint.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. I don't know. I thought it was referencing something that might have already happened, or I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking like maybe that's what, she's saying we're dealing with it by not dealing with it like it's under control, or that, there's all this stuff going on under the ocean, and we don't know about it because beneath the surface lies the future. Sequest.
Pacific Rim. I think that was Pacific Rim, not Sequest.
Oh, okay. Maybe so. So this kind of sets up this whole, Captain Marvel's like part of the group. Thor does the test. We've all seen this. This is the clip. This is like the only clip, that we saw before going into this with, Thor summoning his axe, the Stormbringer. What is it?
Yes. Stormbringer.
Yes, I did it right. And he's like, I like her. And it's interesting. I've had a few people say, man, Captain Marvel looked different in this movie. Like just how Brie Larson looked. And so I Googled it and I looked it up. They shot all of the Captain Marvel stuff in Endgame before ever shooting anything for the Captain Marvel movie. And they hadn't, decided on like hair and makeup and kind of just how somebody looks. And apparently when Brie Larson went on to set for Captain Marvel, she suggested to hair and makeup that she wanted to look a little bit like less makeup, less made up. And in this one, we've got her like, full face, hanging out at the Avengers, headquarters. But this is the plan to go kill Thanos because, well, Captain Marvel's going to do it on her own. Thought that was pretty cool. I love them getting in the ship and the question that's like, hey, has everybody ever been to space? Like,
yeah. Everybody just kind of looks around,
like, just Captain Marvel and Rocket,
and Thor and Hulk.
Thor, right? That's right.
And Hulk.
That's right. I forgot all about Hulk. And
Professor Hulk, Dr. Hulk, whatever it is.
Let's talk about that here in a second. Like that's a little off-putting a little bit. There was something. The effect is done really well, but let's get to this because this is where this mission to go track down Thanos, to go kill Thanos. This was the tweet that I saw, but I didn't know who they were referencing or if it was even the movie. Somebody said, "I swear to God, if he dies 20 minutes in, I'm walking out of the theater." And so we find Thanos. He's like a farmer. He's done, right? He's done his mission.
He destroyed the Infinity Stones.
Exactly, which sets up our next set of MacGuffin stuff. But they cut off Thanos' hand, which proves it can be done. And then Thor chops off Thanos' head
hastily.
Yes, much so. And I was like,
while everyone's trying to get information, Thor's had enough.
Yeah,
chops off his head.
We're done talking here. And it kind of in my head, I was like, oh crap, like we're. At this point, were you kind of like, where do we go from here?
My first thought was that somehow Doctor Strange still had the Time Stone, and they were going to go back in time. That was my first immediate thought, was somehow Doctor Strange is going to show up, and then we're going back in time, and that's how Thanos is still in this movie. Like that was where my brain immediately went. But I also didn't understand where the Time Stone would have been, how it would have happened. Because he gave it away so easily, I felt like he knew he could get it back somehow.
Right.
Like, I don't know.
That he had something figured out. But that was not the case.
No, that was definitely not the case.
This is our first time jump goes into the future. We jump 5 years. We get Captain America holding a 5 steps or 12-step program to help people move on, which I assume that Captain America is kind of like a celebrity, and I would have assumed if he was running one of those 12-step programs that it would be a little bit more popular.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, but then I was also thinking like maybe people have like more important things to do, like trying to, live.
Yeah.
Like it's because it is semi-post-apocalyptic at this point.
Right, yeah, the shots of like the
barren.
Statue of Liberty.
There's no more Mets games, apparently.
No.
Apparently Major League Baseball's just gone.
Right, I mean, half the teams.
They couldn't slim it down to a 16-team league, apparently.
Nope. All the good players were snapped. So
they were part of the 50, which is another thing. It's like, how come everyone's loved ones died? How come nobody was in the good side of the 50%? It's like, come on.
Yeah. Dramatic. It's dramatic effect. That's how it kind of has got to work. We get the time jump. We go 5 years in the future. Black Widow hasn't. Well,
I guess take that back. Tony Stark was fine. He
moved on.
His family was good.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's
got his little girl and Pepper Potts, and they're living out on their own little lakeside ranch, doing their thing. Little cabin, I guess. It's pretty cool. So we get to jump into the future, and this is when, sort of like the ticking clock kind of starts playing. It's sort of like, okay, this is how it's going to happen. And, I had theorized this, not all on my own, of course, because there's, thousands of voices on the internet, saying similar things. But Ant-Man returns from the quantum realm. He wasn't brought back like he was supposed to, so he got stuck. So thankfully, like a rat, luckily tapped on the right keys, turned on the machine in his van, and came back. And this is like the first of the Community cameos, because the Russo brothers directed the pilot episode of Community. So that's why we get Dr. Ken as the security guard. And then...
Yeah, that makes sense now. I was wondering about that. I was like, why is he in this movie? At first I thought it was Bobby Lee from Mad TV. I was like, what's going on here?
Nope. Come on, James. And then I don't remember her name, but she was in Community as well. She was the woman in the elevator back in the 1970s. She was also in Community. So that was a little cameo from the Russo brothers, kind of, giving some love to their old friends. Ant-Man comes into the picture, talks about the quantum realm. We get some time travel stuff, and they need Tony Stark and all that. We don't need to I guess I'm trying to hit the major points, but if you're listening to this, you've already seen the movie, so you don't need to be totally recapped, I guess. But I loved this whole thing with Ant-Man, and then going into them trying to recruit Tony Stark into this, because this is where we get that kind of the foreshadowing of what's to come for Tony. He wants to just ignore it and live his life, and God, he deserves that, right? I mean, he's done so much, and then he's been thrown this idea, this challenge, and Tony's a kind of character that just can't not solve it. That's who we've grown, with, this character. And he figures it out, talks to Pepper, and he's like, should I just bury this or whatever? And this is sort of where we get that kind of setup. Like, yeah, you can throw it away, but will you ever be able to actually rest, knowing that you could have done something?
Right.
Which is kind of our setup for what's to come. So Tony comes back. We're going to do this thing. This is probably one of the funniest sight gags that we've gotten, because I know a lot of people who are going into this movie excited to see Chris Hemsworth, and see some of that good Chris Hemsworth. And what we got was Fat Thor for the whole movie.
We got the dude.
Oh my gosh! Oh, God! What? And they even reference they reference the Big Lebowski.
Yes, Tony Stark does.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you're having a conversation with somebody outside of this movie and you mention something about Fat Thor being in this movie, that is a spoiler. Mm-hmm. So don't tell people that. How dare you? Because I heard that be happening in a store. Two employees were talking, and I didn't know. I brushed it off like nothing was going on. I didn't because I had missed the beginning and the end of the conversation. But I've heard them talking about Fat Thor, and I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And then I saw the movie, and I was like, oh, Fat Thor, got it now.
Yeah, I saw some memes after the movie was over with. I unmuted all the words and enjoyed all the stuff on Twitter. And a friend of mine on his Instagram story posted a no context spoilers, and one of them was just a picture of Fat Monica from Friends.
Yes.
And I was like, that's pretty accurate. And then John and Kate +8 or whatever, the Kate's haircut for like the Captain Marvel haircut, 5 years later.
I mean, I like the Captain Marvel short hair.
I do too.
Short hair, don't care. I
do too. It's it plays in with the comics. I think it's great. It's 5 years later, because she, after the events with killing Thanos, she's like, I got stuff to do, and she leaves, and we never, don't know when we're ever going to see her again.
We know when we're going to see her again, which really annoyed me, because it was like essentially that was a thing for them to be like, okay, we've brought this character back. Now we're going to hope that people forget about her. Like, and
they Arya Starked her.
They Arya Starked it. Well, shit. Game of Thrones spoiler.
I said nothing. All I said was say the name of a character. If you don't,
They did.
I warned you. I warned everybody.
I wish they would not have had her in anything and then just had her show up at the end. You know what I mean? It was just kind of like, but then it's like, why would it have taken her 5 years to get there? Blah, 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 blah. But anyways, that's just me.
I think it still worked out because I think everything was so busy and we were so excited about everything, for her to return. It paid off. But so we get the time travel thing. Tony's in. We got to go get everybody. We get Fat Thor. He's hanging out with his friends from Ragnarok. They're set up this whole you got new Asgard going on, and Valkyrie's running stuff too, and that was cool. And then this is where we get those white suits that everybody on the internet thought were fake for the longest time. Like, no, like these are real. They're making Funko Pops of them. I will eat crow a little bit because remember how when the trailer came out, I was like, oh, I bet all these people aren't in this shot. There's some digital head replacement or whatever. Russo's were they didn't do any tomfoolery in that shot at all. Everybody that's in the trailer is in this thing. They don't show us Hulk or Thor in any of the trailer stuff, but it's not like they fooled us. They just didn't show those guys in it.
Because they didn't want to give away the fat.
Yes, exactly. They had to keep everything. The only Thor stuff we ever see in any of the trailers was the stuff from the very beginning.
Right.
Just those very few little bits. The white suits we talked about when we saw the trailer on one of the episodes, how they reminded us of Ant-Man's suits. And that was for a good reason.
Good reason, right?
Yeah, they needed them for the quantum realm, and I thought that effect was pretty cool.
Whoever their tailor is to get those turned around so quick, kudos.
Tony Stark's got the best 3D printers. That's what I think is going on behind the scenes. Is he's just got these, and plus those suits it's that nano stuff. It's because they basically like turned on the suits and off. Like,
oh yeah, that's true.
So you're right. It's Tony Stark's nano stuff. He can do whatever he wants with that stuff. It's pretty cool. I liked and I disliked. Time travel is kind of it can be cheap and could be a cheap way out of stuff, but I like that they kind of play at that. Like, Ant-Man's trying to figure the whole thing out, and they're like, no, that's all Back to the Future and that's garbage. Like, this is not at all like that. This is all, it is whatever, and they're just basically winking at the audience like, we're about to have a lot of fun, so just go
suspend disbelief.
Yeah, this is a comic book movie if you haven't figured this out yet, so it doesn't really matter. These are not plot holes. These are just intentional ways of telling a story.
I have a comment on that later.
All right, we'll get to that. Let's get to that because we've got a lot to get through. This was some of my favorite, with the exception of stuff that happens at the end. Some of my favorite moments going into these different time periods that we've already all seen. Like I think the time that I laughed, there's a couple times I laughed. The hardest was when we go to Morag, and this is at the opening of Guardians of the Galaxy, and we hear the music, and we see Star-Lord, and he's singing, and he's kicking that rat thing, and then we cut to like War Machine's point of view, and we can't hear the audio from the player. It's just Chris Pratt singing. That got a pretty good audible chuckle out of the audience. And then, of course, I love Tony Stark's comment on Captain America's costume from the original Avengers.
About his butt.
Yeah, he's America's ass.
Well, Ant-Man said it was America's ass.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. He goes, those pants do not do your butt justice, or something like that. He goes, I like to think of it as America's ass. Some good stuff. I loved it. Was really cool, like seeing like the events of the original Avengers film from these like other point of views, like off camera. They handled that stuff really well. Just from all of those scenes to the Infinity Stone, like which ones stood out to you as being like some of the best?
Yeah, so this was one that also got slightly spoiled for me because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and one of the podcasts that I listen to, they're very good friends with Frank Grillo, who is Crossbones.
Yeah.
And he was in the Hydra elevator scene, and they just kilter just mentioned that he was in the movie. And I was in my brain, and that's what kind of got my wheels spinning as far as going back in time with Doctor Strange getting the time stone, all that. Like, my kind of brain started clicking. But knowing that we had to go back in time because he got crushed by a building in Belize or whatever at the beginning of Civil War.
Civil War.
No.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Civil War. Because in the Winter Soldier is before he became like all, official.
Yeah.
Stuff,
Anywho, so so that was kind of a little bit spoiled for me that they go back in time. Just because he has to be alive somehow. But, as far as my favorite back in time, I don't know. Honestly, my favorite back in time part would probably be the Soul Stone with Scarlet Witch and
no, Scarlett Johansson.
Scarlett Johansson. I'm sorry, Scarlett Johansson and
so Hawkeye and Black Widow. I wanted to talk about that one too. I think there's so much. This movie is so long, and we're not going to have much of a podcast if we hit every little beat, because I want to get forward. But I kind of felt, I think the whole scene of Black Widow and Hawkeye trying to like fight for the right. Because I think they look back at their past and they're just like, we've done some really awful, terrible things. We already knew that about Scarlet Witch, that she has a past.
Scarlett Johansson.
God, thanks. Yeah, exactly. Scarlett Johansson, aka Black Widow, and Hawkeye we just saw Hawkeye do a bunch of stuff. I mean, probably all for the greater good, but he's done some terrible things. Like both fighting for this chance to die. And the way they shot this, like I was 100% thinking it'll be Hawkeye, right? Like he's not an original six, like he's not, and then he's he gets saved by Black Widow, and Black Widow falls literally hundreds of feet. This is a little nitpick, but of course no one wants to see like splat Scarlet Witch on the rock. She died like Nebula did, just kind of lightly laid out with a little bit of blood next to her face.
Gamora.
Right. What did I say?
Nebula.
You've
said a lot of things.
I've said a lot of things.
Hawkeye was part of the original six too.
Oh my God. Where's the edit button?
There's just a lot going on that you just said, and 92% of it was incorrect. So we've got Black Widow and Hawkeye. They're fighting over this thing. She did lay in almost the exact same position as Gamora too. I think it was like a symbolism type thing.
I think it's
going on there.
It's got to be. But what do you think about the way they killed Black Widow? Because like that was, our first real major, death from the original six.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of a way to put this. You knew that there were certain people who weren't coming back, and I think that they threw that one in because she was kind of a shoo-in. I mean, people were talking about, like, as far as staying, like everyone, that was the surprise, I think, There's always been kind of talk about, what's his name? The guy that plays as Hawkeye. Rayner. Jeremy Renner. That, maybe things aren't the best. He's not the easiest to work with from what I understood.
Right.
As far as he wanted more screen time, which he is an excellent actor. So,
and there was a Black Widow movie that they were talking about, this whole standalone Black Widow movie.
Exactly.
So it's like, well, now how do you do that? So I don't know. I felt like it was handled well, and it was a worthy death. For the good of all, just as worthy as what Tony does later. Because without her sacrifice, we don't get that. I love the elevator scene with Chris Evans whispering "Hail Hydra." Like that got a good
Yes.
that was awesome. Also of note, when there's that little blunder with the Tesseract, when they're trying to acquire that and it drops on the ground and Loki takes it, that has got to be the premise for the Loki Disney Plus series.
Right, because he's created, obviously this is a splinter off from the timeline that happened originally in Avengers and the timeline that happened at the end of this movie. So there's a third timeline in which he has the Tesseract.
Right. So now he's just gallivanting through the universe, causing all kinds of mischief. So that's gonna be pretty cool. We got the last Stan Lee cameo. They did a little bit of de-aging on Mr. Lee there. That's the last one we've got on film. I really hope that they continue doing somehow like working in those tributes, make, whether he's on a TV in the background or like a photo or on a newspaper or something like that. I really hope that they do something. But let's get to the good stuff. So they get all the stones, James. They're all kind of celebrating, and audible gasp. Like, I thought the Russos just like, I was like, did they this, so in the background, you've got Nebula and 2014 Gamora working with Thanos from 2014 to come back using this portal. And Nebula does, because she switches places with herself. And now we got Thanos' ship right over Avengers and just blown it all up. And I was like, oh my God, did we just really kill off? Like, I was like, there's no way that anybody survives it. And if they do, not that many do, but they all do. Rocket almost not, but
it's almost like the battle at Winterfell.
Too soon. Yeah, kind of, to be honest,
just a lot of people getting knocked down and saved.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I was like, oh, come on, you guys. Like, yeah. So basically, they survived, getting explode. I can figure out Ant-Man. He put his helmet back on, got real tiny or something. And whatever. But, so we get this whole final battle thing. This is where they did such an amazing job of really putting us on the edge of who someone's going to die. Everything they're trying is not working. Hawkeye's got the Infinity Gauntlet. He's trying to, get it to safety. And this is that moment from the trailer that everybody was saying, like, holy crap, like, this is when Captain America is going to die. His shield's been broken by Thanos, and he's just, facing down the inevitable, but he's still standing up tall, still suiting up, still ready to face him. And then you get Falcon over his earpiece saying, "On your left," which is, it's a callback to the Winter Soldier when they first met. And then, of course, all those, swirly, sparkly portals open, and like everybody from the Marvel Universe shows up, except for, of course, the X-Men, because they don't exist in this timeline and stuff, whatever.
Literally everyone except for that little kid from Iron Man 3. But don't worry, he shows up later.
Yes,
so.
Yeah, he does. I had to Google it. I was like, who the hell is this kid? There's this awkward teenager standing behind at this funeral. Man, this fight sequence was crazy.
It was awesome.
When you're at your theater, when everybody shows back up and we see all these heroes, but then Spider-Man swings in the frame and takes off his mask. Did your audience go crazy, or is that just mine?
No, I was with the more civilized people.
My audience, I'm watching. You've got Black Panthers coming out. You've got Guardians and all these awesome characters who, have this, many, they've been in many of these movies and much, in my opinion, more loved. And then Tom Holland swings out and the audience was like, it's the second coming of Christ. Here's Spider-Man. And I was like, that's the most odd reaction I've ever, of all the things that happened. Like, that got a bigger applause and cheer than when we see Mjolnir swing back into Captain America's hand. Like, that to me was absolutely, like, I was floored. Like, that was incredible.
Yeah, the Mjolnir thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I think
like,
that was probably the best part. Aside from when they've been throwing them around for a while, and then it does a stop, and it's got Captain America with Stormbreaker and Thor with Mjolnir, and they switch, and Thor says, "You have the small one."
Yeah, no, that was awesome. That was awesome. Captain Marvel does show up, does what she did in that last movie by blowing up the ship. That was cool. And I'm really appreciative that they didn't go where I think some people were worried, that there was, a lot of people online like, oh, Captain Marvel is just to come along and show the boys how it's done or whatever. They didn't. They used her to show, like, look, this is one of our most powerful, like, strongest characters. She faces down Thanos. They're about equally matched, and the only way Thanos can really beat her is by pulling the Power Stone out of the, the Tony Stark gauntlet, punching her and knocking her way out, out of the picture. And that way it really makes what Tony does, next by going up to try to fight, Thanos to get that the gauntlet off of him. Meanwhile, I guess, I have to assume that Tony built in some sort of eject system, right? Cause isn't that kind of how he ejects that Power Stone out?
Because he grabs the gauntlet for half a second and then somehow gets all the gems. So there had to have been some sort of mechanism that he built in, and also had built into his current suit, as
a backup.
Like, because, just in case he needed to make sure that he had that in his suit as well. Quick turnaround time on these improvements, by the way. I don't know that UAT testing was done appropriately.
No.
I'm not sure. But it
awesome.
worked, so that's all that matters.
Like, that was goosebumps, with Thanos, and the whole time he's talking, I'm like, oh, I don't think he's got the stones, because like I was watching, the hand, and it wasn't showing the stones side to the audience, and he was, that scene, and he's looking down Tony Stark, and he's like, I am inevitable, and then there's that empty snap, and then you cut to Tony Stark, and he's freaking got all those stones, and then he just looks at him and is like, I am Iron Man, and I was just like, oh, like it
was awesome.
Awesome. So awesome. Everybody turns to dust. Incredible.
Everybody bad.
All the bad guys. And I don't know how localized that effect is, because I know that when he killed all of the, half of the world population, that was like universe wide. Did when he did it, was he thinking like all of our enemies? Was he just thinking all of Thanos's guys?
Yeah, you got to be real careful when you do that thing with like celestial powers, because it could be like the whole like what's that game, The Box, or whatever, or that movie The Box with Cameron Diaz, where you push the button and you get $1 million, but somebody you don't know dies, and then it ends up being her husband because her husband was cheating on her or something like that. I don't remember. You
don't know. Yeah, you have to be really careful.
We're just spoiling everything out here. So
yeah, Arya kills the Night King. There you go.
He could be. Yeah, I mean,
you got to be careful. You
got to be careful. You got to be careful when you do broad statements. So I would assume that he meant it was like. Maybe he was doing inclusive. I want to save these people, and everyone else that's here dies, kind of thing.
Maybe it
but
could
then
be very
does he
local.
Even know everyone? Because what's his name?
Yeah.
I mean, he's never met James Gunn's brother, and he was there.
Yeah,
so
friend of the show, Sean Gunn.
Friend of the show, Sean Gunn.
We've met him.
I wanted you to say his name because I know, you guys are better friends.
Well,
obviously, I did know it, but yes. I wanted to make sure that you did as well.
Yeah, he was on the old podcast, and we've got a signed picture of him with the cat, with his cat. It's a fine autographed photograph from Alamo City Comic Con. It's pretty cool. I do want to point out, I really enjoy. I love the seeing all the female superheroes all gathered together, as one. It was really kind of cool to we've known that they've, you've got, the Wasp, and you've got, all these characters, but it was really cool to see them all in one spot, and Pepper Potts, everybody's in there. Let's, supporting Captain Marvel. That was really cool.
I really hate to keep kind of harping on this, but it's so funny that there was all this publicity behind Game of Thrones about being the biggest battle, the best battle of all time in cinematic history, and then the Russo brothers were kind of like, settle down, hold my beer.
Exactly.
This blew that out of the water, in my opinion. Just from obviously it had way more money, 10 years of build up, which Game of Thrones, I guess, kind of has that. But you know what I mean? Like, it had way more going into it.
And a lighting budget.
They had a huge lighting budget for sure, mainly because everything was done on computers. Game of Thrones unfortunately had to cut corners and make everything dark so that you couldn't, tell what was going on.
Exactly.
I literally turned my TV off, restarted my PlayStation 3 times because I thought it was my TV.
Really?
I did. I couldn't.
I didn't have any issues. I knew it was dark, but I guess the TV is just, I don't have it in like a movie,
I guess I don't have natural blacks on my TV. Like, there was all this stuff I was reading that was like, if my TV's 4 years old or so it's
4K.
It's not the best. It is 4K, but I don't know.
Let's talk about the funeral. The Tony's going away. This is okay. There's only two times in this movie that I actually got choked up in, and I felt bad. There's a part of me that felt kind of bad because I felt like I should have gotten more emotional during the movie based on the rest of the audience and like the sniffling and stuff I heard. But I was more like, this is awesome. Like that was my mood at the time. I think if I go see it again, some of those more dramatic beats potentially might land. Yeah, like I didn't tear up when Tony died. I got a little choke. There's something something happened inside with the reef that says proof that Tony Stark has a heart. His thing that Pepper put together and they sent down.
Mine was when Jon Favreau was talking to his daughter.
Oh yes, that kind of bled into that you got Happy talking to his daughter about, what do you want to eat? And she was like, I want hamburgers.
Cheeseburgers.
Yeah. And that's the callback to, Jon Favreau, in original Iron Man. Like that's, he's the guy that got all of this started. Him and Kevin Feige were like, wouldn't it be cool if we can get to Avengers? Like if they can do enough of these movies and get to an Avengers movie, wouldn't that be cool? Like that's insane how
4 Avengers movies later.
Oh man, like that's so cool for them. That whole scene, and then we got the funeral and we see everybody. Captain Marvel standing kind of by herself. Then you got Nick Fury, and then the movie's over. Not over. There's some
just out of curiosity,
Sure.
The way that was shot and everyone's in their own little pods, their little groups. Do you think that they did that all separately and green screened it?
Yes.
And then put it all together because it was like, I don't know whether they didn't tell people what was going on or, kind of trying to keep it secret as to who was still there. They kept all these pods together. I thought it was really 100%. Interesting. Or maybe it was budgeting and they were like, let me get you in a tux. There's going to be a funeral eventually. We're currently filming Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but
I 100%. There's a couple of shots at they're standing in the front and I don't, the way the camera moved and the way they were, it's as perfect as perfect can be, but something lighting wise, something stood out to me as like, this feels different. This feels not
right.
There's something my eye was just picking up on it. I think you're right. I think everybody was shot kind of separate, kind of how they do those big, large, celebrity photos for Vanity Fair. Those are typically composites because not all those celebrities can get together, to take one picture. We've got, of course, Ty Simpkins' character from Iron Man 3, so if you need to Google it, that's who that is. That's the kid from Iron Man 3. So he's there at the funeral. I have to assume that maybe he wasn't snapped. I'd also like to think that maybe his family, because he only really had his mom, that I wonder if she was snapped and Tony checked on him, after everything was over with. Because because he kind of had a lot of similar interests that Tony did. He was kind of an inventor, mechanic kind of kid. So, who knows? I mean, I know that's not what happens in the comic or anything, but I could definitely see them putting him in this movie to kind of remind people and make people think maybe he could be, the next Iron Man. If they do a Young Avengers.
Let's hope not. I don't know. I don't care. Whatever.
Yeah. Well, so wrapping things up though, we got to set things right. Captain America's got to go back into the past and put these stones back, and he's supposed to come back, but he doesn't. And then there he is. He's old man Cap. I don't know. Whatever, you can do so much with makeup and it's still going to look funny as an old person. Old makeup they did a really good job. I will say that, but it's just, that's me still.
I thought that he looked really good as an old person. My one hang up on this is the whole idea that they set forth with all the concern of the splintering timelines, if he went back and stayed, that means he would have been in a splintered timeline. Therefore, to get back, he would have had to still have his suit and have like more Pym particles.
Maybe. But you'd have robbed us of the moment of him and Falcon and him giving and passing it down the Captain America role to him, which I think is pretty cool. But this is the only time that, you know, I loved when Falcon asked, like, you know, so tell me about tell me about it, you know, your life. And he was like, no, I don't think I will. And I was like, yeah. It's like, damn right. You know, Captain America, you've done everything. You've sacrificed everything, and you got to go live your life, and you get to keep something just for yourself. And, you know, the only time where I really honestly got choked up, like where my eyes had water, you know, where I wasn't crying, but like it hit me, you know, it made me feel something. It's that shot with the, you know, old timey music, you know, 1950s stuff. We slow crane, you know, moving into the house. And then there we see, you know, Steve Rogers and Peggy, dancing, you know, to the end. I was just like, good, like, I'm fine. It's pollen or something, you know, it's just Texas air, you know. I was just like, this is awesome. Knocked it out of the park. I mean, yeah, a lot of fan service. I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, it's just all this, you know, stuff. And this movie doesn't do a good job of standing on its own as being its own thing. That's not what this movie is, right? I mean, this is a reward. That's how I see this movie. This is a reward for everybody who went to the movies and saw 21 Marvel Cinematic Universe films. Yeah.
And I don't know that I'm sure they will try to do this again, but I just don't know that it can be done again. Like, I think people will watch it. I think if they do 22 more movies, people will watch them, but I don't think it will have the impact that this did, as far as, like, you know,
no, you're right. You're right.
What story are you going to tell? Like, it's kind of like, oh, we all come together again to beat this guy. We've already seen that. We saw that 10 years ago.
I can see them doing, like, in phases where it's like we have an Asgardians of the universe, Asgardians of the Galaxy movie with Thor in it, and then something else, and then an Avengers movie that kind of wraps up that storyline.
Right.
And then we get another kind of big
You'll
finish.
get phases. I think phases will still exist, but as far as like the 4 phases coming together or 3 phases coming together, culminating in one giant.
No,
you know,
that's done.
I don't think it'll ever happen again.
I agree. So that's our look at Endgame. We'll have, I'm sure, more stuff to talk about once we've kind of had time to digest it. It's so fresh right now, and there's still tons of stuff in our notes we just didn't get to. But what's your favorite moment from the movie? Share with us on Twitter, on Facebook, all that jazz. We'd love to hear about it, and maybe we'll talk about it on a future show.
Let's look around the region and take our pick of the week.
Shut up and take my money.
All right, it's time for our pick of the week. And James, we got a pair of Netflix reviews, or at least some picks from Netflix. So I don't know, you know, you can go first if you want.
Well, you know, unfortunately, I didn't get to see The Curse of La Lo. So I, you know,
who does?
Sorry,
I don't
have a follow up to that joke. No, mine's super quick. I always say this, that like I have to, like, I'm not a big anime person, and I feel like I've already suggested this, but
no, I don't
who
think
cares?
So.
On Netflix, there's one that I've heard about for a while. It's only 3 seasons long, called Hunter x Hunter or Hunter Cross Hunter. I don't know how it's actually pronounced. But it's anime. It's not, you know, it's nothing like crazy or adult. It's you know, kids can watch it. But I don't know. It's entertaining. It's not the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life, but it's what I call my go to sleep show. So I'll watch an episode and then fall asleep afterwards.
There you go. I've got a few of those. That's for me. It's Legends of Legend of Tomorrow. Like
the CW show.
Yeah, like those are my, like, in the summertime when I queue up a Netflix show, I usually throw some, you know, shows for offline view. I'll go back and watch one episode of that, and I'll go to bed. It's a good thing to have.
Way to do it.
Yeah. Mine's a Netflix show too. It's called I Think You Should Leave, and it's a sketch comedy show. Tim Robbins used to be on SNL, and the show features a lot of really funny people. It's, you know, Tim's the only constant throughout it, but you've got Vanessa Bayer and Will Forte and a bunch of other folks. The first, I will say, it's adult. Like there's jokes and language and stuff that are not for the kids, but There's that the first episode has one of the opening is a lawyer commercial, and it's like, has this ever happened to you? Have you goes through this whole thing, and it gets more absurd as he's like talking about these people who are coming in to fix his toilet, and it's like, then the one person goes into the toilet and the other person does, and then then they tell you that their foot is stuck and they need your help, and then when you walk in, their foot wasn't stuck at all. Has this ever happened to you? It's so ridiculous. It is my kind of humor. But then somehow they replace the toilet with a different toilet that looks the same as your toilet, but the hole at the bottom of the toilet is too small to flush. It's so stupid. It's so dumb, but it's really funny. Also makes a good point about there's a scene about a birthday party, and it's like, hey, I got you this, and they're like, that's cool. Oh my gosh, I love it. Oh, you do? You love it? And they're like, yeah, I love it. Well, do you mind if you give me the gift receipt back? And then and he's like, yeah, because you don't need it, right? Because you love it, right? You don't need to keep the gift. And he's like, yeah, fine, take the gift receipt. And then it's like, more presents are open. He's like, hey, you don't mind if I like eat this receipt, do you? No, why would you do that? Well, because you love it, and you don't need to.
You don't need it anymore.
You don't need it anymore. It's so absurd. So, anyways, it's called I Think You Should Leave. It's on Netflix. I highly recommend it. It's super funny. It's only like 6 episodes. They're maybe like 18 minutes long. It's kind of an odd runtime, but it's
cool.
They're quick little digestible little bits. They're good stuff. But all good things need to come to an end, like this podcast episode. So please help us out by sharing and retweeting and joining in the conversation on all the social media platforms. We're on Instagram at The Geek State Podcast. We're on Twitter at The Geek State Pod, and Facebook.com/The Geek State. So from all of us here at The Geek State, we love you 3000, and stay excellent to each other, and we'll see you next time.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly, with this laundry list of character defects, all the mistakes I made, largely public. The truth is, I am Iron Man.
Do you think we need to mention at the top of the show that we also spoil the Cameron Diaz movie, The Box?
Maybe.
You think we need to let the people know? Another classic episode of The Geek State.
Yeah, this is going to get sold in a box set.
Is it?
Yeah.
Did you see that? I don't know if it's fake news, but did you see that they're coming out with a 22 video box set or DVD box set?
I keep seeing that as like, I'd buy this. Like, wouldn't you?
No, you wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't. I already own them all. I already have them all.
You think you'd buy that, but then when you see the price tag of $300 so that they can make money on it.
Yeah.
To me, they have to print all of these.
It needs to be sold in a solid like metal infinity gauntlet that opens up like a binder, and then you've got all of the discs inside there like that. Like, that's how you do it.
Kind of like how they used to do the phases.
Yeah.
They did the first one as the case with the Tesseract. I have that one. I don't have the second one, though.
Was it Ultron?
It's like it's the sphere from Guardians.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
I mean, it's fine. But, I mean...
No, I already own all these movies. I don't need them again.
Exactly. Exactly. Give me a bundle of digital copies of these movies. How about that?
Yeah. Or just give me... Or how about you just pay $6.99 a month starting November 12th to Disney Plus, and you get them all.